The events of November 2nd sent shockwaves through Israel, leaving the nation in a state of disbelief and heightened alert. On this day, Hezbollah launched a daring and unprecedented attack, striking at the very heart of Israeli naval power with precision and intent. The targets were carefully chosen: Haifa in the north and Ashdod in the south, both critical to Israel's maritime operations. The strikes were precise and devastating, inflicting significant damage on key naval infrastructure and sending plumes of smoke into the sky. This was not just a military operation, it was a calculated strategic blow aimed at undermining Israeli naval dominance. Hezbollah targeted the Mediterranean coastline, a region crucial to both Israeli and American interests, rich in natural resources and strategic value. The strikes shook the foundations of Israeli dominance in the eastern Mediterranean, challenging their control and security in the region. This region, abundant in natural resources like gas and oil, had long been considered an Israeli sphere of influence, vital for their energy security and economic stability. Hezbollah's attack challenged this notion, demonstrating their capability to strike at the core of Israeli power and disrupt their strategic assets. The date, November 2nd, would be seared into the collective memory of the nation, a day of reckoning and reflection for Israel. It served as a stark reminder of the volatile situation in the Middle East and the ever-present threat posed by Hezbollah, a group with the capability and intent to challenge Israeli security. The world watched with bated breath, wondering what the ramifications of this audacious attack would be and how it would alter the geopolitical landscape. The balance of power in the region seemed to be shifting, with new alliances and conflicts emerging in the wake of the November 2nd strikes. Alliances in the region. Hezbollah's actions on November 2nd were not just about inflicting damage, they were about sending a message. The strikes on Haifa and Ashdod were a clear demonstration of their military capabilities and their resolve to challenge Israeli dominance. Hezbollah effectively declared its control over the Mediterranean waters. This was a direct challenge to Israel's maritime superiority and its control over resources. The message was amplified by Hezbollah's subsequent actions. They launched missiles from Haifa towards Ashdod, showcasing their ability to strike across the entire coastline. Ashdod, a strategic port and a symbol of Israeli power, was a particularly symbolic target. The attack underscored Hezbollah's determination to redraw the maritime boundaries and secure Lebanon's access to its rightful resources. The November 2nd strikes were not an isolated incident, but a catalyst for a wider conflagration. Within 24 hours, the conflict escalated dramatically. Hezbollah launched a barrage of missiles targeting key Israeli positions. Military installations near Beirut were hit with precision strikes. Tel Aviv, the heart of Israel, also came under attack. This demonstrated Hezbollah's reach and firepower. It also highlighted their strategy of targeting strategic assets to maximize impact and disrupt Israeli operations. The conflict spread north, with Hezbollah bombarding Israeli settlements, forcing mass evacuations. The Golani Brigade headquarters, a symbol of Israeli military might, was repeatedly targeted. Its potential collapse would represent a significant psychological and military blow to Israel. The escalating conflict exposed the fault lines within Israeli society and the government's struggle to contain the crisis. Prime Minister Netanyahu's leadership came under intense scrutiny. His strategies, criticized for their reliance on military force, seemed to be failing. Netanyahu's attempts to secure ceasefires, first in Gaza and then in Lebanon, proved futile. His over-reliance on military solutions and his failure to address the root causes of the conflict fueled further instability. Internal divisions within the Israeli military leadership added to the sense of chaos. Netanyahu's clashes with high-ranking officials, including Brigadier General Avraham Avri, highlighted the ideological rifts within the government. The conflict exposed the growing influence of far-right elements within Israel and their impact on the country's policies. Thousand strikes as the conflict progressed. Section 8. Guardians of Sovereignty. The resistance rises. Hezbollah's actions, while condemned by some as acts of aggression, were seen by many in the region as a legitimate response to Israeli occupation and aggression. Hezbollah positioned itself as a defender of Lebanon's sovereignty and a protector of its people. This narrative resonated with other resistance movements in the region, including Hamas in Gaza. Hamas, despite facing its own struggles, sought to safeguard Gaza's infrastructure and achieve statehood within the 1967 borders. These movements, united in their opposition to Israeli occupation, presented a significant challenge to the status quo. They demonstrated the power of resistance and the determination of people to fight for their rights and freedoms. Section 9. Beyond the battlefield, regional and global implications. The conflict between Hezbollah and Israel cannot be viewed in isolation. It is a microcosm of the broader geopolitical struggles that define the Middle East. Its impact reverberated throughout the region and beyond, affecting not just the immediate parties involved, but also the daily lives of ordinary citizens. The November 2nd strike served as a catalyst for protests and unrest in neighboring countries. These events ignited a wave of demonstrations that swept across the region. From the UAE to Jordan, people took to the streets, expressing their solidarity with the Palestinian cause and condemning Israeli actions. The protests were not just about solidarity, they were a cry for justice and a call for international attention. The conflict reignited long-standing tensions and highlighted the volatile nature of the Middle East. It underscored the fragility of peace in a region fraught with historical grievances and modern-day rivalries. The international community's response was mixed. While some nations called for immediate ceasefires and diplomatic resolutions, others remained conspicuously silent. European silence in the face of Israel's far-right government's actions raised concerns about double standards and the erosion of democratic values. This silence was seen by many as complicity, further fueling the anger and frustration of the protesters. The conflict exposed the hypocrisy of those who claim to uphold human rights while remaining silent in the face of oppression. It brought to light the inconsistencies in international policies and the selective application of moral principles. The question remains, can the flames of this conflict be contained? Or will they spread, engulfing the region in further chaos and destruction? The answer lies in addressing the root causes of the conflict, including the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the rise of extremist ideologies. Only through genuine dialogue and mutual understanding can a lasting peace be achieved. Until then, the Middle East will remain a tinderbox, vulnerable to the slightest spark. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a resolution, but bracing for the worst.